What's up, everybody? It's your boy Juju Green, aka Straw Hat Goofy, your movie guy, and you guys are listening or watching Get Wrecked with Straw Hat Goofy. I'm sitting here with Kingsley Ben-Adir. How's it going, my man?
Yeah, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm sitting here talking to you. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Well, my pleasure, man.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
You sound a little tired. You good?
No, I'm not. I've had a good sleep, and I've been up for a while. I feel good. My voice is just, I don't know. Maybe.
I bet you've been doing this circuit for like a good little minute.
I've been talking a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm talking from the wrong place, so my voice is just going a bit down. But
I'm so sorry. I'm going to make you talk a little bit more.
I love talking. That's all good. Just shut me up if I go on.
Wake up, Juju. Time to go to work. All right. Can we talk about wake up, I get it, I get it. Wake up, I get it, I go. With everyone saying I'm up next. It's not my fault that the vocals are gold. They're making the haters so upset. My life is a movie, the way that I roll. They saying I'm goofy, but baby, you know I'm making everybody obsessed. Cause we the best, how we get wrecked, and I know we gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread.
In case you guys don't know, I don't know unless you're living under a rock, I'm going to list some of the accomplishments and things that Kingsley has been in because honestly, I have a list right here because I don't want to get this wrong. You were Gravik in Marvel's Secret Invasion. You were recently Ken in Barbie.
Yep.
You were also Malcolm X in One Night Miami, directed by Regina King. Mm-hmm. And now you're playing Bob Marley in Bob Marley One Love. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, you've been just racking these things up over the last couple of years. Like, what is this like, just kind of going back to back to back?
I mean, when I hear you say like that, to me, it feels like, 5-6 years of, it feels like a longer period of time.
Right.
Yeah, I've been lucky, man. I've had some nice jobs, and they've all been different and fun in their own ways.
That's really good. It's very diverse, like a lot of variety when it comes to, like, to you stretching yourself as an actor, for sure. Now, we're going to get into like you as an actor and everything, but I want to kind of like dive deep into what the reason for this show is, right? It's called Get Wrecked, which means like, usually with people like us who are movie fans, there's like that one movie that's like our favorite movie of all time, or that movie that altered our brain chemistry and kind of became the building block for who we are today. Yeah. Do you have a movie like that?
As it relates to wanting to be an actor?
Yes.
I guess, yeah, I do. I remember... I remember 2003, it must have been 2003 or 2002, going to the cinema to see in America. And I remember going, not knowing what I was going to see. I was just going to meet some people there, and they said, we got a film, and I sort of reluctantly went. And Jim Sheridan's in America, and I remember watching it and just being... just absorbed in the story and Jaimin's performance and the performances of the kids in the movie. And I just remember Paddy Considine and Samantha Morton and their relationship. I was just in. There was just something really I don't know, relatable or whatever it was.
Right.
And I remember at different points in the movie just feeling that thing in your throat.
Yeah, the good feeling.
Well, I didn't think it was good at the time. But I was feeling something. And Jaimin had some moments when he gets sick in the film. I just remember going, it was like an emotional roller coaster. And then when Paddy says bye to Frankie at the end, I was gone. And I'm 16 and I'd never cried in I'd never cried in a movie.
It was the first movie you cried at?
I think so, yeah. I remember when I was young, the BFG made me cry, like when I was 4 or 5.
BFG.
Yeah. But I can't even remember that film too well. But yeah, it was that. And yeah, and I remember there were 10 years I'd watch it 2 or 3 times a year. And it's just a film that's always stayed with me. It had a really big impact on me. Just emotionally. And then I obviously followed Paddy Considine and Samantha Morton and Jaimin. I was lucky enough to work with on King Arthur.
Yeah.
So I just ended up catching up with all of their work, and so I say in America.
I think that's like very ironic because in America, right, like you as an actor, like you've become a part of this list that I like to call like the black catfish. Whereas like a lot of us African Americans, like we see you in all these type of films and we don't know your English until you start talking. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you aware? How often are you made aware of the fact that people don't know that you're English?
Some guy come up to me yesterday, young British guy, black British guy, and he went, "You're not American?" And I was like, "No."
It happens at home.
He was like, "I thought you was American," and I was like, "Why did you think I was American?" And then he pointed to the Bob Marley poster, and then I was like, "Why would you think that Bob Marley was American?" I was like, "This kid's just confused." I was like, no, I grew up in Kentish Town and I still live here, and London's my home.
Right.
Yeah.
See, okay, so I'm glad you said that, because now we can segue like into Bob Marley, and like your accent in that is so authentic. Like I was blown away. You and Lashana's, like the fact that you guys got that down so well. Is it kind of like, what is the gap from going from your regular way of speaking and learning like how to tackle that Jamaican accent? Because I imagine like as an American it would be harder for me, but was it difficult for you? Like what was the training like?
Yeah, it was the most. It's a language, really. You know, it was the authenticity of the movie was something that we spoke about. The heads of the studio, Paramount, everyone at Paramount, Ziggy, the whole Marley family, Ray. Before we started, before there was a green light, there was a very serious conversation about authenticity and making sure, or just making sure we were all agreed on the fact that the way Bob spoke. May not be clear to everyone outside of Jamaica, but if we're going to do this, we need to do it properly. I can only do it if we're going to do it like this, and we have to honor how Bob spoke. And when he was talking to Jamaicans, it was different. And you know, a lot of the interviews that we have of him on YouTube are, you know, they're short and they don't necessarily give you the full picture of Bob when he's in full swing. You know, and Jamaican patois it's a language, and I was coming into this movie going, so this is a foreign language film with no subtitles, and I don't speak the language. And I don't speak the language. So what would I do if I had to make a French movie in 8 months?
I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it. It's like a foreign language film.
Yeah, you get to work and you go, I had a lot of help, and it wasn't a dialect coach. It was a language team that we had in place. We had 4 specialists in Jamaica. I had my own Jamaican friends and family coming to my flat for, you know, hours and hours and weeks at the beginning, and we were transcribing Bob interviews, and we were. It was the bulk of the work. It was really 95% of the process, and it went on to the last day. That you know, seeing all of the language I spoke in the film was written in Frederick Cassidy's. Breakdown of Jamaican patois. So he writes Jamaican patois using the English alphabet. And so if you read my script, you wouldn't know what it said.
I like little notes on it and everything, just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like
but then there's like how Bob spoke as well. Bob traveled and he picked up words from the States and he picked up words from the UK, and there's a lot of things that Bob says that Jamaicans don't say. So it was about finding the balance. But my feeling was always that you don't need to understand everything that Bob says, because he's speaking from such a place of feeling, and as long as you understand the emotion of the scene, we're all good.
I was just about to say that, because like it was funny when you say like foreign language film, because I remember, I believe it was
City of God.
Not City of God, but I love that film, absolutely. But it was recently the director of Parasite, when he won his Oscar, and he said like the language barrier is not a barrier at all. As long as like you get the emotion of it, then you get that. And like, you know, sometimes watching the film, I was like, I don't know what Bob is saying because I don't speak that, but I got what he was saying, if that makes sense.
You always feel it.
You can always like feel it. And so I never really felt lost in what was going on, despite not having like, you know, heard those type of things before.
Yeah, and you understand what I've said by listening to what Lashana says in response. You know, so it's you know, it was a really a delicate balance of finding it, but we never wanted to whitewash anything. We never wanted to like simplify anything. It was like, how would Bob say this? If Bob was in this situation right now, what would he say? And how would he say it? And that's how we're saying it. That's it, you know. And because Sadella sent me hours and hours of Bob interviews from over the years that you can't find on YouTube or anywhere. So I've been listening to him, and I know how he'd say most things, you know, in a lot of situations. So I had all those stored up. So if there was ever a time where someone can work out how Bob could say it, I'd be like, he'd say it like this. And if you don't believe me, listen to this. So it was great. And the film is littered with really beautiful moments where Bob's saying things that I'd heard him say really early on, and we've managed to get into the film. So I felt
you're
really
a part
pleased.
of that because you kind of was like, hey, I remember him saying that. So you got to help put that in there.
And Neville was there as well. Neville Garrick, who's Bob's close friend and an artistic director, and he remembered a lot of how Bob would say things, and you'd always hear Neville shout out, no, my Bob would say it like this, so try it like that. So it was a real community,
It's gotta be dope.
to create. To find Bob for me involved everyone. Which is really unique, That might not happen again.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about like, your childhood and like kind of like in relation to like your interactions with Bob Marley music or just like his persona, his like aura. Because I remember for me, like my core memory of Bob Marley is like I grew up in Compton, so I would go to swap meets all the time. Shop for clothes, and there was always this one spot that was just like filled with Bob Marley like paraphernalia, memorabilia, merch, clothes. And so my first core memory is seeing this like dread-headed man in the green and the yellow and the orange, like all these colors, and then the music was always going. So whenever I thought of Bob, I think back to that moment in my childhood. Do you have any core memories like that?
It's really, I'll keep it mad simple. I almost can't remember because I've spent so much time with him over the last 2 years. But I don't think it was as much as I thought, I thought I knew him like everyone feels like they know Bob. Everyone's connected to him in some way, but we just know a little bit of his music and some more than others. And I know his famous songs, but when I started digging into the albums and listening to him and talking to his family and friends, I was like, bro, I know nothing at all. I don't know anything about this man. And the thing that I really, really found out was that Bob was from the ghetto, he was a ghetto man, and he found music and God, and that's where he felt connected and felt safe, and he dedicated his life to music, and man worked, he put everything into those albums, he really lived for it. So when I look back and I go, what was my relationship with Bob? I would have heard him at Notting Hill Carnival. I'd been going to the carnival since I was 3-4 years old. My first memories would be I've always known who Bob is in that kind of way that we all have. But I certainly remember the first 6 weeks of preparation, and I was working through all the books and calling the family and talking to Ziggy and Sidel and everyone, and I was like, oh wow, I know nothing. I know nothing. So it was amazing. The first 6 months I absorbed so much information, and I met all people Bob grew up with and his friends who knew him before he was famous, like Lego and and Lenny Dredd and Desi, and so it was it was full on, and again I found Bob with his friends and family.
That's incredible.
They were able to share with me stories and memories that you can't find in books.
That's great. And final question, because I believe we only have a little bit of time left. You're in a Best Picture nominated movie, Barbie, as Ken. Did you ever think that you would be able to say that sentence, like, I'm in an Oscar nominated Best Picture movie playing Ken? Like, how does that feel?
Oh, well, when I read Barbie, I went, who they giving money to make this? This is mad. I mean, like, I read it and I went, this is my cup of tea. But I don't, like, my feeling was it was one of the best things I'd ever read. And you might not read something this good for another 5-6 years, so enjoy it and try and get involved. So it's amazing to see, how Greta's put the whole thing together, and it's had an amazing reception, and good for her. She's incredible. She's an incredible person, and she's an incredible artist, and she deserves all the success that, that's come. But it was something that I feel very grateful to have been a part of.
Thanks, man.
To do fun stuff and to do comedy, slapstick.
Yeah. You was killing it, man.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about Bob Marley, One Love, man. And
my pleasure, man.
Everything. It's been
nice
incredible.
To talk to you.
Nice
it's a great start to the day.
I know, right? Well, I'm glad I got to open up, be the opening act for your Bob. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was great. All
nice.
right. What's going on, guys? You are listening to the Get Wrecked podcast with Straw Hat Goofy. Thank you so much for supporting this page, this podcast, wherever you're listening or watching this on. Really appreciate you guys blowing up all the episodes. We are here yet again, and we have a really special episode for you guys today. This week, Bob Marley, One Love came out in theaters, and we will be interviewing Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays Bob Marley in the movie, as well as the director, Reinaldo Marcus Green. So we got a really good interview portion of this video. But before I do that, because I might just kind of put that interview earlier in the video or in the podcast or whatever, so you guys can just kind of get that out the way. But what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the big news that came out this week. There was a lot, okay? There was a ton. We got Fantastic Four cast updates. We got Deadpool 3. We got X-Men 97. We got possibly the worst superhero movie to ever exist in Madam Web. I saw it. Wish I didn't. And then just right now, I'm still in the close. Yesterday, I watched The Last Airbender live action from Netflix. So I will give you my quick non-spoiler thoughts on that for the first episode. We're going to get into all that. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Until then, drop that needle, Charlie Curtis Beard.
Wake up, Juju. Time to go to work. All right. Can we talk about wake up, I get it, I get it, I... 1, 2, 3, hey. Wake up, I get it, I go with everyone saying I'm up next. It's not my fault that the vocals are gold. They're making the haters so upset. My life is a movie, the way that I roll. They're saying I'm goofy, but baby, you know I'm making everybody upset. Cause we the best, how we get wrecked, and I know we gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread.
Nice. I'm still trying to get over the fact that I have an actual theme song. But anyway, there is a lot of news to talk about. I just want to get some of the big stuff out the way first. Let's talk about that Deadpool 3 trailer that premiered at the Super Bowl. Now, number one, we knew that Logan was going to be part of Deadpool. We knew this, right? It was just in what capacity. We knew it was going to be rated R. What was that dynamic going to be like? And when it came to that trailer, we just wanted to see Hugh Jackman again, right? That's all we wanted to see. And then having him finally interacting outside of that cute little post or mid-credit scene from Deadpool 2, that's what we all really wanted to see. But we were not expecting just how, we knew this was going to happen, but we was not expecting how tied in to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Deadpool was going to be. Obviously, he's a very meta character. He's someone who inherently can poke fun at Disney, and he has the leeway to kind of say the things that most Disney film characters can't. And weird, Deadpool is now a Disney film character. That's kind of weird to say. But the fact that we got the TVA playing such an important role that we saw in Loki and now playing this role in Deadpool, we're okay, he's here. Having seen the scene where Deadpool is looking at scenes from the Avengers and saluting Captain America, I was okay, I'm in. And then the trailer reminds you that it's rated R because he's shooting TVA members in the head and there's blood and he's banging their heads on rocks and he's putting knives in their throats. And you're just kind of oh, okay, we got a rated R flick in the Disney MCU now. And that was really, really cool to see. Some of my favorite moments from that trailer, obviously just those references, but seeing the 20th Century Fox logo in the background as he fights in the snow, when he does that super insane gun reload moment. We saw set photos before of the 20th Century Fox logo, which is why I kind of been pushing off of not reporting on Deadpool leaks and stuff like that, because at this point it's really starting to spoil the plot for me. So I've saved myself just enough to not be spoiled by anything, right? But seeing that logo on the back and knowing that Jennifer Garner is coming back as Elektra, and then also in the trailer we see Pyro from X-Men 2, X2, X-Men United, seeing that character. Now with those type of confirmations, we know that we're going to be seeing more characters that we were seeing in the Fox universe, and I guess the New Line cinema. I think Daredevil was New Line. I can't remember if it was Fox or not. But seeing those characters again within this Deadpool movie, and then obviously Logan's coming back, there's going to be a lot of kind of farewells to those characters, if I should say, the official goodbye of the Fox Marvel universe, and then eventually it will tie into the larger MCU as a whole, because the TVA is just looking at this as a different timeline. So really excited to kind of see that. But then the biggest reveal is that the movie is not called Deadpool 3, it's called Deadpool and Wolverine. And that is so smart, because not only do you get a movie that just with its title says this is an X-Men movie, this is us introducing a classic Fox Marvel character into the MCU and putting him in the title front and center. That's really, really cool. And obviously, Deadpool, we love Deadpool. Putting Deadpool and Wolverine, I think it's genius. And that just says all the whole while that this is going to be a buddy comedy. They're both headlining. It's a double headlining event. It's not like Deadpool and Friends, which I believe was one of the titles that was like, they put up for registry or whatever. But no, it's Deadpool and Wolverine, and they're giving Wolverine that equal billing, which I love it. I love it. There's still some questions about like which Wolverine is this? Obviously, it could be a variant. It could be this. We don't know if it's going to be the Wolverine right after the Wolverine where he gets his suit because he's in his classic suit here, or if it's like the Logan, like right before things went to shit in Logan. So we don't know, but I'm really excited to see that. So the Deadpool 3 trailer, it's all the rage. Everyone's talking about it. But then days after that, just like maybe like 2 days after that, we got a casting announcement for the Fantastic Four in a Valentine's Day card, no less. That was good. That was really good. And I believe like I scrolled past it because, Marvel likes to post things on their Instagram from the movies, from the comics, from TV shows, all that stuff. So you see that and you just scroll past it. I know I did. And then I just decided randomly to look at my hidden request messages on Instagram, those DMs and stuff. And somebody just had the message, like 1A, 3 H's. And then I said, well, what's he saying about? And then he sent me the link to it. And that's when I kind of decided to click on it and look closely and said, well, wait, this is an announcement. So seeing that we got the casting announcements, that it was really great. So for those of you guys who don't know, we have Pedro Pascal, who was confirmed to play Mr. Fantastic a while ago. And I believe that SAG-AFTRA kind of like leaked that it was actually confirmed. So we got that as well. A lot of people don't really feel too good about it, but I think Pedro could pretty much do anything. He's not my first, second, or third choice, but in Pascal, we trust. We have Vanessa Kirby playing the Invisible Woman, which I knew about that for a minute. I might put that story in a like Instagram subscription or something like that and just keep it super private. So if you want to subscribe, pay $4 to hear the story of how I knew Vanessa Kirby was Invisible Woman before everybody else. But anyway, so Vanessa Kirby is Invisible Woman, aka Sue Storm. Joseph Quinn is the Human Torch, which I know that was on nobody's. Well, it was on people's radar, but I think a lot of people were pulling for like a Dacre Montgomery or a Paul Mescal, like, or Zac Efron. Like I know I was on the Zac Efron as Human Torch train for sure. But Joseph Quinn, like I loved him as Eddie. Eddie is my favorite Stranger Things character ever. He's got a lot of like upcoming projects that I think he's gonna be able to turn people around on. I just find it funny how people were kind of simping over Eddie, but like now that he's Human Torch, somebody who's designed to be simped over, people are like, I don't really see it. He's not hot enough. But Eddie was a different type of hot. He was a nerd and just kind of like an outcast and things like that. But Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch, aka Johnny Storm, really, really liking that. And then we have Evan Moss Backrack as the Thing. Now the rumors started really swirling during the Emmys, and obviously like he just won his Emmy for The Bear. And so Marvel does this thing where they kind of like scoop up people who've had like a bunch of awards buzz or had just won an award. And I haven't seen much of The Bear. I've maybe only seen maybe 5 episodes or something like that. I know I've seen him as Micro in the Punisher series, which also begs the question, how, if Daredevil is a continuation, right, into like the new MCU when we get into Daredevil Born Again, then that implies that all those characters are now canon within the MCU. That means there are 2 characters that look like Evan Moss Backrack within the MCU. We have Micro and now we have the Thing. But here's the thing. See what I did there? The thing is that the Thing looks like, I gotta stop saying that. The Thing looks like a rock man, right? We're gonna see a little bit of Evan Moss in his human form, but that's probably only going to be like 10% of the movie. So for the most part, we're going to be seeing him in the MCU and beyond, like as far as he's going to be in it, in this giant rock form. So he can still be Micro, but then he can also be the Thing. It's like the Sean Gunn with Rocket and Kraglin situation, right? We don't notice it, but we don't care because, one, he's doing like a body thing, and then the other one, he's like doing his full like performance with his face, his mouth, and all that type of stuff. So even though that like is a little bit of a question mark, I'm still down with it. I think he's from what I've seen, perfect Thing already. Like super hard ass dude from Yancey Street, heart of gold, Jewish. I think he'll knock that out of the park. So when it comes to this casting as a whole, I would say that 50-50. There's 2 of them that I'm like perfect casting. That would be Evan Moss and Vanessa Kirby. We're on board with that. Pedro Pascal can do anything that he wants. Again, wasn't my first choice, so very curious how he's going to play the character. And then Joseph Quinn, again, really love him, but like he wasn't my first, second, or third choice either. But obviously he's a great actor. Loved him as Eddie. Again, favorite Stranger Things character of all time, and I'm really excited about that. But what I really want to talk about, just really, really quickly before we move on to the next piece of the news, is that in Deadpool 3, the trailer, Deadpool and Wolverine, there's a moment where Deadpool is laying down on the ground, and to his left, or I guess to his right, there's a comic book. And then you look closely, it's a Secret Wars comic book, Secret Wars issue 5, I believe. And on that cover, it has Doctor Doom. It's an issue about the X-Men, but on that cover, it has Doctor Doom on it, which is he's a huge villain in Battle Wars. He's like the catalyst that makes the whole Secret Wars story go. We know that Avengers Secret Wars is coming, and so with these reveals of like Fantastic Four, Deadpool, X-Men are coming, they are definitely setting up who the real big bad of the MCU is and who the major players are going to be. And these major players are going to be the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. And the fact that Marvel ran through this within a week, it's genius. It's honestly like, it makes a lot of sense. Speaking of X-Men, X-Men 97 trailer also came out, and that was pretty damn good. I saw the trailer a while back when I went to the premiere for What If Season 2 at the Walt Disney Studios. It was really great. Saw the trailer, was really loving the striking visuals of the animation. Looks very familiar, like the classic 90s animation that we got with the original series. But then you also, it's almost got like an Archer feel. It's almost got like an anime feel to it, like the glares, the lens flares, things like that. The movements of some of the characters, right? It remains to be seen how the voice acting is going to be updated. But here, it really does look like a clean continuation, a modern continuation of that classic animated series. So I'm really, really I'm with it. And there's so many things to like about it, right? Like, one, Jean Grey is pregnant, and there's a huge storyline because they show her pregnant in 2 different scenes. So you could say, if you read those comic books, especially the Chris Claremont ones, maybe they're going with the Madeline Pryor storyline where Scott is with Jean Grey then after the Phoenix Saga, because they did have the Phoenix Saga in the 90s cartoon, and he thinks he's with Jean. She has a baby, but it turns out that that woman is a clone of Jean. And then when he finds out Jean's alive, he kind of abandons her. I wonder if they're going to adapt that storyline. I don't know. Seems like a really cool plot line to go down. And then we also get like looks at other like X-Men characters. Like Bishop has always been in the animated series, but he wasn't a main X-Men per se, right? So now he looks like he's part of the main team of the X-Men, which would be really, really cool for that team dynamic. There's also one guy that I can't remember his name. He looks like a chameleon too. He looks like the chameleon. He's like bald, super white. Don't really know his name. We'll find out. But, you know, it just looks really cool. I'm with it. It was a short trailer. It was all about kind of like bringing the old to the new, but I was really feeling that a lot. So X-Men 97 came right after Deadpool and the Fantastic Four announcement. So they're really hitting hard on those like previously defunct Fox characters and like bringing them into the MCU proper, which is really, really great. Now, while the MCU was cleaning up their reputation after like their string of very, very mid to all right movies, we've gotten probably one of the worst movie adaptations ever, and that was Madam Web. And I went to the premiere for this, and you know what? To be honest, I'm grateful. One, because it's always great and an honor and a privilege to be invited to a movie premiere, like check out a movie before anybody else, especially when like people have seen your work and they want to get your opinion on it. But I'm grateful for the fact that a lot of people had in their mind that if you go to a premiere, you have to give this movie a good review. And this was the perfect opportunity to prove that wrong. Because like the way my review style works, especially if you guys have been following me for a while, is like I try to say something nice, even about the bad movies, right? I give you the full view of what I liked, what I didn't like, and then I'll give you like an overall, like, at the end of the day, this movie is good, or I didn't really care for it, blah, 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 blah. It was hard for me to come up with something to like about this movie. It was really hard. And, you know, that when it gets to the point where a movie is so bad, where I have more negative to say than positive, that's the mark of a truly bad movie. I think I only liked one thing in that whole movie. Some people said they liked Dakota Johnson. Some people said, I just liked the chemistry between the 3 girls, Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabella Merced. That's it. She has one good funny scene, Dakota Johnson, just one. But That's all I can muster good about this movie. There's nothing good about this movie. We're talking, and I don't want to get into, maybe I can get into spoilers. This is my podcast. I can get into spoilers. And it's Saturday by the time this comes out. Probably you will have or will not have seen it. Or chances are you've probably seen the reviews and decided not to go see this movie. Anyway, just in case, spoiler alert, this movie is so trash. The dialogue, the editing, just the way the story progresses, the lack of action. I'm trying to figure out, where do I start here? There's a moment in the movie where Madam Web like almost dies. She almost drowns. She gets saved by Ben Parker. Yes, Uncle Ben. She gets saved by Adam Scott as Uncle Ben. And he says, hey, you almost died. You should go see a doctor. She looks him dead in the eyes and said, oh no, I'm fine. I just want to go home and watch Idol. And there's an awkward pause after she says it. It was almost like a Family Guy cutaway. Like, I felt like it was supposed to be a Family Guy cutaway in that moment. Not to mention, like, bro, we've all memed the line that she says in the trailer that they ended up taking out, like it was going to make the movie any better, where she says, he was with my mom in the Amazon studying spiders when she died. Okay. But it goes further than that. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, I knew it was going to be shit. How did I knew it was going to be shit? Because after she gets shot, when she dies, freaking spider people, like spider monkey people in Spider-Man suits, like legitimately they're in Spider-Man suits, jump out of the trees, grab her, like snatch up her mom, and they start like skywalking on the trees, like super quick. Like it's hard to explain. It's even harder to experience. And that's when I was like, this is going to be so trash. And it just knocked it out. Oh my God. At one point in the movie, she says, why do you hate me? And that was exactly what I was thinking to myself in that moment. I wasn't with it. Again, editing choices, like random. I'm gonna do this effect. I'm gonna do this effect in post, but random zoom ins on the face during conversation. I was not. It was like TikTok editing. You know that thing that TikTok people do when they really want to emphasize a word. They zoom in on their face really fast. That's what the movie was doing. And it was like in one scene, the camera kept cutting back and forth between these two characters having a conversation. And every time it landed on a new person, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Why not just start the shot like already on their face? Like, if you're trying to be if you're trying to make it feel disorienting, congratulations, you did your job, but not the way that people like it. So it's just, bad guy is so generic. He's only running around saying like, I gotta kill them before they kill me, blah. He has a lot of money. He talks about how he came from nowhere, but he doesn't elaborate on what he does. I have no idea what this bad guy does. I don't know anything about him. All I know is that he took a spider and shot Cassie's mom. That's it. That's it. And somehow he got rich. Somehow he has resources to do these things, to kill these girls. What is he going to do after he kills these girls? I don't know. Why did they kill him in the first place? Why does he have a Spider-Man suit? Why do you have a Spider-Man suit, my guy? Like, there's no explanation for anything. And then there's a moment where he like she sees into the future and he's like beating these girls up and killing them in his regular clothes. He shows up on the train in his regular clothes. He sees the girls get off the train. Next thing you know, he gets off the train, but now he's all of a sudden in a Spider-Man suit climbing upside down on a wall. I'm like, wait a minute, what time this was 5 seconds ago, like legitimately 5 seconds ago, and not like movie time. In real time, y'all got off, and then you looked up, he's there in his Spider-Man suit crawling. What are the okay, I can go on about this all day, but Madam Web definitely is one of the worst movies that I've ever seen. Now, it is one of those like movies that you could watch with friends and laugh, because I will tell you, I did have a good time laughing with my buddies Cinema Joe and Jay Stoobs. We were cracking up that whole movie. Yeah, I'm grateful for movies like this, because it does prove that, like, even though you get invited to a red carpet premiere, sometimes the movie is just not good, and you got to let the people know. And like, that doesn't deter you from going. It's just, hey, you got to do better next time, bud. So Sony, Madam Web, like, do better next time. That's all I got to say. I'm not going to spend my time just completely pooping on this movie. It's just my public forum, right? This is my podcast. I feel like I can just do that, just let me do that. Anyway, so Madam Web, one of the worst things I've ever seen. Now, just yesterday,
I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action adaptation from Netflix. And I just want to run y'all through just like, this is one of the best days ever. This is one of the best days ever. Obviously, people have been having like a lot of like apprehension towards this series because, you know, they're taking out key elements. Like Sokka needs to be sexist. Aang isn't as goofy. Like he's not like goofing off at the island and stuff like that. Like the creators walked out, even though that was old news when, you know, like 6 months after the show was greenlit. They walked out a long time ago. But people use anything to kind of like find something to hate on with this thing. Now, I already like had some faith going into this because the One Piece live action was good. I hear the Yu Yu Hakusho live action was pretty good. So it seems like Netflix was, they're doing their thing. They're doing their thing when it comes to live action. They learned. They know how to do it. They know the creators to get. They know who to get involved, and it seems like they're doing their thing. So I had hope for this one, especially after the trailer. You know, some people say like the special effects wasn't all there. The special effects aren't always there when it comes to the trailers. So again, holding out hope. But walking you through like my red carpet experience, man, like it's a Netflix event. So the fact that I was rubbing shoulders with not just the cast of Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's great, but you also have the OG cast. We're talking Michaela Jo Murphy, who played Toph. We're talking Dante Bosco, who played Zuko. And these are friends of mine. So we're just like kind of hanging out, super excited. We're super nerds about this. We're super into it. And we're hanging out, and I see Inaki Godoy and Jacob, who plays Usopp and Luffy, respectively. It's, bro, I saw the live action Luffy and Usopp in the flesh. And the best part about this was that Inaki knew exactly who I was. He walked up to me and was like, "Oh my God, Straw Hat Goofy, it's so great to meet you." And I lost it. I lost it internally, of course. Like I kept my cool in his face. But obviously, like I had to tell him just how great he did as Luffy. I had told Jacob as well, like the love they have for One Piece is just so good to see because as a super fan myself, you guys know me, I'm a super fan of this. Like seeing people who genuinely care about that property is really great. And the fact that we sat there and we talked about One Piece for maybe like 15, 20 minutes, like enthusiastically too. The only reason why we stopped is because there was a line for me to take pictures of him and me. And so it was like a whole thing. But man, it was great. So like meeting them, that was really cool. I met Arian, who plays Grover, and Percy Jackson in the Olympians. And as you guys know from the Walker Scobell episode, we talked about him in the Spider-Man India. So I brought that up to him. He said he watched my stuff for a while too. He's a really great guy. And like we talked about getting him on the podcast soon. So look out for that. Shout out to Arian, man. But yeah, just like being on that carpet, like, you know, from one of the things that I grew up with as a kid, like I was pumped. I was excited, right? So full transparency, I was very like high on the thing before like actually going to see it. But even if I had not gone through all of that, if I had just got a screener and watched this at home, or if it was just like one of those turned down screenings where you get like one thing of popcorn and a water, it still would have blew my mind. Like, to be honest, like what I loved about this first episode, because they only showed us one, was that it gives us an expansion of the stuff that we already know, right? It doesn't, it gives us things that we don't see in the animation, and it does it in a way that the animation can't do, which is get more brutal with it. I saw a firebender unalive somebody with fire, and it looks exactly like how it's supposed to look. My mouth dropped. I was like, oh, okay, this is the type of show we're dealing with now. And that was my eye. That was the thing that got me into the actual like show, right? That's what, like, because I know a lot of people are apprehensive, and I feel like they think like, oh, it's gonna be a 1-for-1 and they're gonna fail at doing the 1-for-1 thing. No, those first 5 to 10 minutes will let you know exactly the stakes that you're dealing with, the tone that this is going to strike, and if you're okay with that, you keep going. If you're not, then you can put it down. And I feel like they did that on purpose, right? But I feel like that was something that definitely made me say, I'm into this world. I'm going in, man. Like I'm really with it. So after that, with that context, I understood where Aang was coming from, because there's little slight tweaks to like why he was like out in the storm and got in the water in the first place, right? Little stuff that explains why he is the way he is. So that way you're just not, oh, why isn't he like goofy and happy and da, da, da. So, you know, all the characters feel like they're characters, just more epic, you know, bigger versions of these characters, if that makes sense. Sokka still feels like Sokka, but they're really emphasizing the fact that he's the man in charge at a very young age who had to grow up very quickly without his father. They hype in on that. They really harp in on Aang, like knowing full well what was happening and then having that regret, right? And then like coming to terms with you got to grow up fast as well, which again, I made this video on TikTok. Like, these are child soldiers. They're children. So like the theme of like having to grow up really fast and like the loss of innocence is completely there. It's just not done in a goofy way. That's not to say that there's no goofy or fun moments within the first episode. There's moments where a lot of people were laughing for sure. But since this is like a giant epic, which is what I think they meant by like comparing it to Game of Thrones and stuff like that, is because this is a huge world with huge nations and huge things. Like one line, and again, not going to get into like big spoilers, but one line is like when one of the characters says, nobody goes to other nations anymore, where Aang grew up and he used to, visit his buddy Kuzan in the Fire Nation and Bumi in the Earth Kingdom. Like, this is now a time where everyone is absolutely divided. And like they said, you only look after your own kind. And the job of the Avatar is to keep the balance, right? Unite everybody. So like the fact that they're like putting that type of stuff in there and really harping in on those themes, I really like that from the live action. And I thought that was like really, really dope. But yeah, so the One Piece live action, episode 1, starts off really strong. It's a very, very strong start. It remains to be seen what the other episodes are, what the pacing is going to be like. I feel like the episode 1 pacing is phenomenal. I wasn't bored. Wasn't even falling asleep. And even if a movie that I like or whatever, I start to fall asleep, I wasn't falling asleep here. I was completely locked in. But yeah, that was Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it was great. And I really hope that you guys check that out and give like your honest opinions on it. And just like, keep your mind open. Like, we don't need like shot for shot live action recreations, because then at that point, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? So yeah. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Juju Green, aka Straw Hat Goofy. I'm here with Reinaldo Marcus Green, director of Bob Marley One Love. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing great, man.
You doing all right?
Yep.
So yeah, how do you feel being in LA? I was actually with Kingsley in London doing the junket over there.
Okay.
And it wasn't as rainy over there as it is here.
Yeah, I know.
It's like everything.
I think Kingsley brought the rain. It's all his fault.
Okay. We can blame him later on today. I see how that goes.
Yeah.
So I really want to start this off because the name of my podcast is Get Wrecked. And I feel like when it comes to movies and film, they kind of like make who we are, especially people like you and me, director, movie lover, right? Like, I really want to know, what is that one movie that you saw and it just kind of altered your brain chemistry and it kind of like made the building blocks to who you are?
Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right Thing. Oh, Spike Lee.
For sure. It was on loop in my house. My dad needed TV to fall asleep, and Do the Right Thing. Mookie was always on. Number 42. My high school number, my high school jersey. That movie changed my life, changed my brother's life. Both of us filmmakers. So kudos to Spike.
Yeah, man, I remember first seeing that film and it blew me away as well, especially during, like, just the rising tension in that movie with the heat and the character interactions and everything. Really quick, what sport did you play? You said your jersey number.
Baseball was my main sport. I played high school football, but baseball was the sport I played my whole life.
Okay. Basketball, so I thought we have the same last name, so I was like, if we were both
green,
playing basketball,
you know what I'm saying?
I
wish. My dad didn't let me play basketball because I was a baseball player and he thought I'd hurt my fingers.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of those basketball players, the fingers all jacked
especially
up.
if you play baseball,
So
you're going to need those, right?
I was like, nah,
I get you. All right, well, when it comes to this movie, I think it's very interesting how you also directed King Richard, right? A couple of great performances, Oscar-nominated performances. You were also nominated for Best Picture. With Bob Marley One Love, I saw the film. A couple of great Oscar-worthy performances in this one, while also getting input from like the real-life family members of the subjects that you're talking about. Can you talk to me about the difference between like, doing something like King Richard, consulting with Venus and Serena, and then Ziggy with Bob Marley One Love?
Yeah, we had the inverse challenge here. King Richard was Will Smith, megastar, playing someone that not a lot of people know unless you're in the tennis world. Here, Kingsley Ben-Adir, we're introducing a sort of a new star to the world, playing someone that everybody knows in Bob Marley.
Right.
And so that was a challenge because the bar was so high for what people know about Bob. He's on every T-shirt, every button, every bag, and every cafe around the world. So how do you do it? You need to find somebody. So it's a lot of magic that went into the performance, into the film, to bring the essence of Bob to the big screen. And Kingsley does a tremendous job in our film.
He absolutely does. I was blown away. We talked about like his accent, everything he had to go through, like talking to Ziggy and his friends, like how did he speak and things like that. I'm also curious because you already mentioned it. Bob Marley is a larger than life figure. Everybody knows who he is. But what was really interesting, what Kingsley said, was that he said he didn't really know Bob until he started doing the work, right? I'm curious to know, what was your kind of like first interactions with Bob Marley? Mine, like I grew up
up in Compton where the swap meets were. So like I just saw Bob Marley paraphernalia and like the shirts and everything. And that's like who Bob Marley was to me. That and a lot of weed.
For so many, man. I mean, look, I think it was on my birth certificate. My father named me Reinaldo Marcus Green after Marcus Garvey. That wasn't an accident. He named my brother after Che Guevara. So he was a revolutionary. Bob was always on in the house. It was just something that was always around. Now, little did I know we were going to be making a movie. But I didn't know that much. I think Kingsley's right. It's impossible to know that much about the man. There's an enigma about Bob, a mystery about him. Still, even after this movie, you know, it was just trying to get an insight into who he was and what made him tick. And I think we captured something, and that was unique and special about the film.
Oh, great. Well, what was your favorite part, like, of diving into Bob Marley? Was there something you were really eager to like really get into and kind of like learn about as you were making this film?
I think it was all the things that I didn't know about him. So trying to figure out what that was. And I think learning about Rita Marley was a big way into Bob's story for me. That she was the one that taught him about Rastafarianism. I didn't know that. I was like, oh, okay, like that's interesting. That's new. That's something that I think the world would be interested in. You know, and because that's one of the single most important moments in Bob's life, giving him a spiritual foundation for all of his music, his message. It's like, that's such a revelation for me. Their unconventional relationship, their unconventional courtship, it's like it's a love story. And that was new. I didn't know that, you know, and just how hard Bob worked. Like, there's something so chill about him. He's relaxed, his music's relaxed, it's feel good. My man was on a mission.
When it came to the music, he was like, from the film, you could tell he was in it. Like it was almost like a Mamba mentality, like way he approached it.
That's exactly Mamba mentality.
Yeah,
he worked relentlessly. He was militant about it. They said he didn't sleep. My man rested his eyes. Like, that's incredible. What do you mean you don't sleep? Like I'm, like I'm tired after like 2 minutes. He's just like, he just had it, man. He had it, and I think he just felt like there wasn't enough time. He had to use his time. I think they said he had visions of the shooting. He knew something that we didn't know, and he knew he had to get it out.
I mean, with people like that, you know, you could just tell there's something about them that, like, you know, they have a second sense, like a sixth sense of knowing, like, where the trends in the world are going. So, like, I was really happy seeing you guys capture that moment in the movie where he says, like, hey, the people are going to need this. You know, I think there's a line in the movie where he says they don't have to like it, they just need to hear it. You know what I'm saying? And that just really made me go, wow, like, this man really was different when it came to his music and connected with the people.
Absolutely.
I really like how this movie, called One Love, a man about peace and love in the world, the movie's coming out on Valentine's Day. And I find that very, very clever, but also very interesting that, you know, I believe this movie took a while just to get made. Was like Valentine's Day always the date you were going for, or was it just a nice coincidence?
Not at all. It's a coincidence. The universe is working in mysterious ways. And that's just the way it does. I think they tried to make this movie for 25, 30 years. I heard Scorsese's name. I heard Oliver Stone, and I'm like, these are some of my favorite filmmakers that couldn't get it made. What happened? It just wasn't their time. It was my time. So
exactly.
Thank you guys for allowing some space for your brother to come in and take the ball and run with it. But no. But in all seriousness, it just time was on my side for this one.
I mean, Martin, you have Killers of the Flower Moon. It's, you know, so
you can have that one.
You got that one.
Look,
we got this one.
You're one of my favorite filmmakers, Martin. So hopefully we'll chop it up one day.
That's really great. I really love how you take these like real life figures, whether it's, you know, Richard Williams, who's like a little lesser known, but then Bob Marley, who's like way bigger. Is there any other like real life figures that you would be eager to kind of, you know, get behind the camera on and tell their story?
Man, there's so many. I don't think about biopics. It's not something how I've ever approached my filmmaking. They're started from stories. Bob Marley is an incredible story. A kid who grew up poor, homeless, with an absentee father on the streets of Trenchtown. He's not supposed to be one of the greatest to ever do it. The odds are stacked against that kid. Like, that's just a great story. And
absolutely.
like biopic, no biopic. That would just be a great story. So what I'm looking for are great stories that uplift us as a community, elevate us as a people, and are saying something, man. Movies should say something.
That's awesome, man. And that's a story, like, I feel like, you know, as a guy living in Compton, I'm like, I hope someone will tell my story like that when it's
One
all
day,
said and
baby,
done.
one
One day,
day.
you know, maybe you, who knows? You know what I'm saying? But another thing that I wanted to ask, a very simple question. I feel like you got this question a lot during this whole press tour, especially when we talk about Bob Marley. What is your favorite Bob Marley track?
It's so hard, but yeah, Redemption Song is the one that keeps coming back, and I think in particular with this film, it felt like a thesis in some way, a through line. It became an organizing principle for this film. I felt like Bob had to redeem himself from something. He had to learn to love himself. And that song kind of captured that for me, and so yeah, it just has a deep emotional resonance. I love that song.
Yeah.
I love his message, and yeah, that one hits the heart every time.
That's great, man. Mine, I would have to say, like, Woman Don't Cry.
Oh yeah.
Woman, I love how you got that in the film. It hits, man. It hits
It
where it
hits.
needs
It
to
hits.
hit, for sure. There was I was at a San Diego Comic-Con, I think it was 2 years ago now, and Ryan Coogler was unveiling the trailer for Black Panther.
Okay.
And that's one of the greatest trailers I ever saw in my life because it makes great use of, like, a cover of that song.
Yes.
And it, you know, especially at the time, you know, Chadwick Boseman passing,
Yeah.
as well as just kind of like, you know, adding in the Kendrick like elements
Yeah.
to it. It just sticks right here. Like, it's one of those moments that will like stay with me. And it took me a minute to like realize, oh wait, that's a Bob track.
That's a Bob track.
You know,
That's a
and
Bob
like
track.
even when it comes to superhero films or whatever, like Bob just has that emotion.
Yeah, it's what he was singing for, man. What he was singing from. I think he had the message of the people, man. The hearts of the people, man.
Absolutely.
He was for the people, and people know that it's real.
Yeah.
Bob
yeah.
was real, man.
One of
Amazing.
the realest to ever do it.
Yep.
Right? Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure, man.
Really appreciate that.